Today on this video, we're going to pay tribute to the amazing drummer Neil Peart, who lost a battle with brain cancer this last Tuesday, and we found out about this on this last Friday night. And I thought we'd look at the question of why is it that Neil Peart amazed me, and more so, why did he amaze us? Coming up. So if you're new to the channel, thanks for being here. Again, a little bit different format and feel of what we're going to talk about today, but I thought this was an important video to make for several reasons. I see people pay tribute to artists who passed away all the time, and that's just never been me. Up until now, Rush was the first band that really impacted me in a way that made me say, I really want to know more about this band, and I followed them as a super fan. I went and saw them 7 or 8 times. I've bought tons of their albums. I had books, their biographies, instructional books. I had the concert guides from the 1983 New World Tour. I had one from the R30 tour. I had one from the Presto tour. So yes, I was a huge fan, and there's not been another band in my life that I have followed that intently. I learned the bass parts. Like many of you, I air drummed along with Tom Sawyer. I listened to it in amazement to Subdivisions at the very end of that song where he's doing the offbeat ride. That just totally blew me away. And so I thought, let's take a look at why it is that sometimes we get amazed by drummers. And I want to preface this by something that I think is really important. I've met some people over the years that became very obsessed with learning about certain people. They wanted to go and meet a star, and so they went up and face-to-face talk with them. And I asked them, well, what happened when you met them? And they'll say, well, I just got their autograph and I walked away. And it occurred to me that I have done that with one artist in my life, Gino Vanelli, me and my friend, and we were floored by meeting this amazing guy. But we just said, oh, we love you, autograph. We walked off in the parking lot and realized that we never learned anything from it. What a waste that you don't get to find out and learn more. And I thought this is an opportunity for us to look at Neil Peart's work, his life, and see if there was something there that we could all relate to, and also take away to say, yeah, that was a pretty meaningful life that he lived, and I can use some of that in my efforts and the things that I do. So what's the first thing that jumps out at me about Neil Peart's playing? He had these massive fills. Listen to this. Something like that, you just go, wow, there was such power out of it. And it wasn't like there was just 1 or 2 fills that he did. He would do these impossible fills in the middle of already a complicated song, and he would land on one, and you were just floored by that. And there was just this catalog of fills that you could go through. And I think in another video we're going to talk about the top 5, top 7 fills that Neil Peart did, and get your opinions on that as well. The other piece of it was the interplay he had with the rest of the band. Him and Geddy Lee were amazing as they played together. When they would back up Alex Lifeson when he was taking a solo, they were incredible the way that they played together. The interplay when they traded off fills in YYZ, just wickedly cool. I mean, really cool. And there were so many times that you could say that the way that he interplayed with the rest of the band, it just stood out. I think one of the things that drew me to Rush in the early days that really stood out for me is that he didn't ever play anything simple. And it's one of the things that drove me as a musician, as a composer, to say that I'm not going to take any notes for granted as I'm playing. He never played anything simple, and he wasn't repetitive in any way, shape, or form. Again, if we go back to a song like Tom Sawyer, each verse sounded different. He would, in the middle of a verse, change from playing just straight eighth notes or 16ths on the hi-hat, then maybe he'd go over and get onto the ride and ride on it. He'd do different fills. He'd change up the patterns. Nothing was simple, and I was always captivated that he wasn't just a drummer. He was a musician. He took every piece of music and he composed beginning to end all of the parts of those pieces of music. Another thing about his playing is that the way his drums were tuned, he had a real tight snare, and it just sung out. The way he used his China cymbal in certain songs, you'd hear that China and you go, wow, it just cut through you. He had 8 and 10-inch toms, which would just cut through, just cool as could be. And along with that, he had this massive drum set, and here's a picture of it. You can see it here. It was a double-sided set that rotated, and some people would build a big giant set, and they wouldn't really ever use it. Every night when he was touring, he'd use every single piece of his drum set. He had an electronic marimba keyboard that he played next to him. He had a half electronic kit. He had an acoustic kit. He had a gazillion cymbals. He used all those things, and they served the point of the song so well. And that brings us to the second part of what we could really learn about him, is that here's this guy, people who were treating him like he was a god, but he'd be the first to tell you he wasn't. And in the 90s, at one point, he decided, I'm going to go ahead and relearn how to play my drum set. And he took serious lessons. When he was at the very peak of his playing, he took lessons to re-look at how he used, how he approached the drum set, how he approached rudiments, all the fundamental skills of being a drummer. He was a student of music. He would tell you about that in the few interviews that he did. He always talked about how he listened to this guy and that guy and how he tried to apply it. He was a fan of Stuart Copeland's and how he would switch the beat up in different parts of the bar. Again, an amazing part of him was not just the playing piece, it was the other pieces also. It was how he lived his life. He was humble. He just was an introvert at heart. And he used that to his advantage. He was a reader, a fan of Ayn Rand, and that was reflected in some of the early works that Rush wrote with 2112 and many other works as well. But he also was a student of the human condition. When you look at a song like Subdivisions, where he was talking about cliques and the isolation we feel in school, so many people can identify with that because of their own perspective on that. These 3 guys were 3 geeks in junior high and high school, and they adapted. When they went out on tour with bands like Kiss, Gene Simmons commented once that he just couldn't believe these guys would just sit in their hotel rooms and be reading. On their off days, they would go to baseball games and do odd things that other rock stars wouldn't do. You know, along with that, on the road, he got into bicycling early on. And so he would bicycle between gigs, and during that period of time, he would journal and write about all sorts of things. He's had some travel books that he's written and created, as well as later he decided it was more practical. He loved to motorcycle, and so he motorcycled between gigs when he could. There was a trailer that came along beside him, and he loved the isolation. He was just a fan of life and being outside. One of the other big things about him, as I mentioned, he was a student of literature and many different things, but his lyrics stood out in a huge way. He had so many powerful lyrics where he exposed some really great truths, and the way he would turn a phrase. One of the things that I really loved early on when I was listening to Rush, the first album that I listened to was Rush, Permanent Waves. This is the exact album I had. And I would sit in my chair and I would pull out the sleeve that had the lyrics on it. And I read these lyrics and I said, this isn't like the Van Halen albums I've been listening to at all. I would read these things, something like The Spirit of Radio. Begin the day with a friendly voice, a companion unobtrusive. Plays that song that's so elusive, and the magic music makes your morning mood. That was some really cool stuff. Then when you get into a song like Natural Science or Free Will, powerful lyrics. I remember going to my dad. I was in junior high school, and I just started to listen to Rush. And I said, Dad, these lyrics are amazing. And he looked at me like I was a space alien. That's just a rock band, Todd. I thought it was the coolest thing I'd ever heard, that these rockers were virtuosos in how they approached their instruments, but they were also deep thinkers, and they put a lot of thought into the content that they were creating. The other thing that I noticed over the years is that Neil Peart and his bandmates expressed a great deal of humor in what they did. They didn't take themselves too seriously, even though they were doing incredible work. The video stuff that they created pre-concert and during their concerts, where they would be in these different scenarios of being characters, were hilarious, and they had a lot of fun with each other, and we could be so lucky to just go ahead and have fun with the people we work with as well. And isn't that just really what life is about, is trying to live an exceptional life, your life exceptionally, that you don't try to be somebody else. He wasn't trying to be. Neil was trying to be the best Neil Peart that he could. That's why he was a student of music. He tried to be the best dang drummer he could for the band Rush. And ultimately, the thing that stands out the most that I learned about the band Rush is that Neil leaves behind a body of work that is exceptional, that moved us as fans to love this band for what they did. Incredible, powerful music, deep, meaningful music, and I think that's worth remembering and applying in our own way as we go forward as musicians and just people in life in general. So that's my quick observation of what amazed me about Neil Peart's life, and I hope you have some comments about that. Please leave those in the comment section below. If you're new to this channel, I would love to interact with you more. I'm going to do a couple more videos that I think are going to be worth looking at here in the next couple of days. We're going to talk a little bit more about Neil Peart while we're at it. And we're going to talk about his top drum fills. We're going to talk about some of the top lyrics that he wrote. And I think we can have some fun with this in the midst of also feeling the loss that we all feel of not getting a chance to hear any more work from this amazing musician. And I think that's worth exploring and having some fun with and remembering him well. Thanks for being here on the channel. I really appreciate always you coming in, being a part of Learn About Music. I had made mention that this channel is changing, and that is still true. We'll be changing this in the near future, and so I would love for you to be part of the experience as we keep going. Until next time.